Commander Zethkar of the Dominion Empire stood before the massive holographic display in his flagship's war room, his 6 eyes scanning the primitive planet below. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, completely unaware that its fate was being decided by beings from across the galaxy. The Dominion had conquered over 3,000 worlds, and this small planet would be no different from the rest. "Status report," Zethkar commanded, his voice echoing through the metallic chamber. His subordinates, a mix of various alien species that served the Empire, straightened their postures. "Sir, preliminary scans show the inhabitants are still using chemical propulsion for space travel. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light capabilities," reported Lieutenant Vexana, a tall, slender being with silver skin. "Their most advanced weapons appear to be nuclear devices, but even those are primitive compared to our plasma cannons." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what could be considered amusement among his species. "Nuclear weapons? How quaint. What else do our intelligence reports say about their military capabilities?" The tactical officer, a heavy-set creature with thick, armored skin, pulled up additional data. "Their armies still rely heavily on projectile weapons, sir. Bullets fired from metal tubes. Some of their historical weapons are even more primitive. Our archaeologists found references to something they call a Gatling gun from their past conflicts." A wave of laughter rippled through the command center. The idea that any civilization would use such crude mechanical devices when energy weapons existed seemed absurd to these advanced beings. "A Gatling gun?" Zethkar repeated, his translator struggling with the human term. "What exactly is this ancient contraption?" "According to our data, it's a hand-cranked weapon that fires multiple projectiles in rapid succession. Humans used it in their primitive wars centuries ago. Completely obsolete by any reasonable standard," the officer explained, unable to hide his amusement. Zethkar walked closer to the display, studying the planet's surface. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by networks of roads and railways. From space, it looked peaceful, almost innocent. The Empire had faced resistance before, but never from a species this far behind in technological development. "Have they detected our presence?" he asked. "Negative, sir. Our cloaking technology is far beyond their sensor capabilities. They have no idea we're here." The commander nodded, formulating his invasion strategy. The Dominion Empire prided itself on quick, decisive victories. Overwhelming force applied at strategic points usually resulted in immediate surrender. Most species recognize the futility of resistance when faced with superior technology. "What about their population centers? How many major cities should we target for the initial demonstration?" "Earth has several large population centers: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing. A single plasma strike on any one of them would likely cause immediate global surrender," Vexana suggested. But Zethkar was thinking differently. This conquest would be observed by other species in nearby systems. The Empire needed to send a message that resistance was not only futile, but laughably inadequate. A show of force that would become legend. "No," he said slowly. "I want this to be educational. For them, and for any other primitive species watching. We'll give them a chance to demonstrate their best weapons first." His officers exchanged glances. This was unusual. Typically, the Empire crushed resistance before it could even begin. "Sir," Vexana questioned, "we'll make contact. Inform them of our presence and our intention to add their world to the Empire. When they inevitably refuse and mount their defense, we'll document everything. Let them bring their finest weapons, their most advanced technology. Let the galaxy see how pathetic their efforts are compared to our might." The tactical officer's thick fingers worked across his console, bringing up population density maps and military installations. Their largest military forces appear to be concentrated in several regions: North America, Europe, Asia. Should we target their military leadership first? Eventually. But first, I want to study their response. What weapons do they consider their best? How do they organize their defense? It will be entertaining to watch them scramble with their primitive tools. Zethkar moved to the communication station. "Open a channel to Earth. All frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The communications officer, a being with tentacles instead of arms, worked quickly at her station. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting across all human communication networks." Taking a deep breath, Zethkar began the message that would change everything. People of Earth, I am Commander Zethkar of the Dominion Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our galactic civilization. You have 48 of your hours to consider your response. You may surrender peacefully and accept our rule, or you may resist and face the consequences. He paused, allowing the translation systems to work. We are monitoring your communications and military activities. We suggest you prepare your finest weapons and gather your strongest warriors. When you inevitably choose to fight, we want you at your very best. It will make your defeat more instructive for other worlds that might consider resistance. The transmission ended, and silence filled the command center. Across Earth's surface, the message was being received by every radio, television, and internet-connected device simultaneously. Panic would follow, but so would preparation. How long do you think it will take them to mobilize? Asked Vexana. Based on their historical conflicts, probably most of those 48 hours, Zethkar replied. They'll argue among themselves, form alliances, share technology. It should be quite the spectacle. What the Dominion Empire didn't understand about humans was something that couldn't be measured by their sensors or analyzed by their computers. Throughout history, when faced with impossible odds, humans had a tendency to reach into their past, to remember forgotten lessons and abandoned tools. They were about to learn that some things become obsolete not because they don't work, but because they work too well. In a secured facility deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, an emergency meeting was already underway. Military leaders from around the world were connecting via secure channels, and the conversation had quickly turned to humanity's available options. We need every advantage we can get, said General Patterson, studying reconnaissance images of the alien fleet. Conventional weapons, nuclear weapons, everything in our arsenal. What about the museum pieces? Suggested Dr. Sarah Chun, a military historian who had been called in as an advisor. Some of our older weapons might catch them off guard precisely because they're so different from modern technology. Museum pieces? General Patterson frowned. Doctor, we're facing an advanced alien civilization. I don't think muskets and cannons are going to make much difference. Dr. Chin pulled up historical data on her tablet. Not muskets, General. But consider this. They've probably analyzed our current weapons. They know about our rifles, our missiles, our tanks. But what about weapons they've never seen before? Weapons that operate on completely different principles. She highlighted several entries in her database. The Gatling gun, for instance. Rapid-fire capability using purely mechanical systems. No electronics to jam. No complex guidance systems to disrupt. Just pure, simple mechanical engineering. The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. The aliens had dismissed humanity's primitive weapons, but perhaps that dismissal was exactly the advantage they needed. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Commander Zethkar watched with satisfaction as human military forces began mobilizing across the planet. Soon, they would learn the true meaning of technological superiority. Soon, they would understand that their ancient weapons and primitive strategies were no match for the might of the Dominion Empire. But in the depths of human military installations around the world, engineers were dusting off blueprints that hadn't been used in over a century, and the sound of old machinery being restored to working condition echoed through forgotten corridors. The humans were preparing something the Empire had never encountered before, the fury of their own history. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the massive underground workshop beneath the Smithsonian Institution, surrounded by weapons that hadn't seen combat in over a century. The air smelled of machine oil and old metal, and the sound of restoration work echoed from every corner of the facility. What had once been a storage area for historical artifacts had been transformed into humanity's most unconventional weapons laboratory. Status report. She called out to the team of engineers and historians working frantically around antique machinery. The 1862 Gatling gun is fully operational, reported Master Sergeant Rodriguez, wiping grease from his hands. We've restored 3 of them to working condition and manufactured ammunition using the original specifications. Dr. Chin nodded, moving between the restored weapons. The Gatling gun stood prominently in the center of the workshop, its brass barrel assembly gleaming under the industrial lighting. 6 barrels arranged in a circle, each capable of rapid fire through a simple hand crank mechanism. It was beautifully primitive and devastatingly effective. Have we tested the firing mechanism? Yes, ma'am. Rate of fire is approximately 200 rounds per minute with a skilled operator. Range is effective up to 2,000 yards with the right ammunition. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out in secret facilities. In Russia, engineers were restoring Maxim guns and testing their water-cooled firing systems. In Germany, museum curators worked alongside military specialists to bring World War I-era machine guns back to operational status. Every nation was digging deep into their military history, searching for weapons that might surprise an enemy who had dismissed human technology as primitive. The aliens' mistake was assuming that primitive meant ineffective. They had studied humanity's current arsenal, but had completely ignored the weapons that had shaped human warfare for centuries. These mechanical marvels had been retired not because they were inadequate, but because newer technology had replaced them. Now, those newer technologies were exactly what the aliens expected to face. General Patterson arrived at the facility with a convoy of military trucks loaded with supplies. His expression was grim but determined as he surveyed the restoration work. "Doctor, I need to understand exactly what we're doing here," he said, approaching the Gatling gun. "The president is asking for a full briefing, and I need to explain why we're betting humanity's future on antique weapons." Dr. Chin gestured for him to follow her to a tactical display that had been set up near the workshop area. "General, consider what we know about the enemy. They've analyzed our modern weapons, our tactics, our technology. They think they understand human warfare." She activated the display, showing historical footage of Gatling guns in action during the American Civil War. But they've never encountered sustained rapid fire from a purely mechanical system. No electronics to jam. No heat signatures to track, no complex targeting systems to disrupt. Just simple, reliable mechanical engineering. The footage showed Confederate soldiers advancing across an open field, only to be cut down by the devastating fire from a single Gatling gun position. The psychological impact was as important as the physical damage. "The aliens expect us to fight with modern weapons," Dr. Chen continued. "Guided missiles, laser-targeted systems, electronic warfare. They've prepared countermeasures for all of that. But how do you prepare a countermeasure for a hand-crank machine gun that operates purely through mechanical action?" General Patterson studied the weapon more closely. "What about armor? Their personal protection systems?" "That's where the ammunition comes in." Master Sergeant Rodriguez joined the conversation. "We're not just using standard rounds. We've manufactured specialized ammunition based on designs from the late 1800s, but with modern metallurgy." He held up several different types of rounds. Solid steel penetrators, explosive shells, even some experimental designs using depleted uranium cores. The beauty of the Gatling gun is its versatility. It can fire almost any projectile that fits the barrel. Dr. Chin pulled up tactical projections on the display. The psychological factor is crucial too. These aliens come from a highly technological civilization. They've probably never encountered sustained mechanical fire. The sound alone could be disorienting. She activated an audio recording of a Gatling gun in action. The distinctive mechanical rhythm filled the workshop, a rapid cycling sound unlike anything produced by modern weapons. It was relentless, mechanical, almost musical in its precision. "Furthermore," she continued, "the Gatling gun can be operated by infantry, mounted on vehicles, or even deployed from fortified positions. It's incredibly versatile and requires minimal training to operate effectively." General Patterson was beginning to understand the strategy. "So we're banking on the element of surprise." "Exactly. They'll come expecting modern resistance. Electronic warfare, guided missiles, sophisticated air defenses. Instead, they'll face weapons that their ancestors might have encountered on primitive worlds centuries ago, but operating with a level of precision and power they won't anticipate." The workshop was humming with activity as teams worked on different aspects of the operation. Near the back of the facility, historians were training military personnel on proper Gatling gun operation. The technique was surprisingly simple, but required practice to achieve maximum effectiveness. "The key is maintaining steady rhythm," explained Professor Williams, a Civil War expert who had studied these weapons for decades. "The hand crank must be turned at consistent speed. Too fast, and the mechanism jams. Too slow, and you lose the rapid-fire advantage." Corporal Martinez, who had volunteered for the training program, practiced the motion repeatedly. How many rounds can we fire before the barrel overheats? That's another advantage, Professor Williams replied. The rotating barrel system means each individual barrel has time to cool between shots. You can maintain sustained fire much longer than with a single-barrel weapon. Meanwhile, intelligence reports were coming in from around the world. The alien fleet remained in orbit, apparently content to wait for humanity's response. Their ships had been conducting scans of major military installations, but they seemed to be ignoring the smaller, less obvious facilities where the real preparation was taking place. They're focusing on our obvious targets, reported Colonel Hayes, the intelligence liaison. Air Force bases, missile silos, naval facilities. They haven't shown any interest in historical sites or museums. Dr. Chun smiled grimly. Good. That gives us the advantage of surprise. The restoration work continued around the clock. Engineers who had specialized in modern weapons found themselves learning techniques that hadn't been used in over a century. Machinists studied blueprints drawn by hand, understanding mechanisms that relied purely on mechanical precision rather than electronic components. Ma'am, we've got the ammunition production line running, reported Lieutenant Davis from the manufacturing area. We can produce approximately 500 rounds per hour for each Gatling gun. What about deployment? General Patterson asked. How quickly can we get these weapons to strategic positions? Master Sergeant Rodriguez consulted his logistics charts. The weapons are relatively lightweight compared to modern artillery. 2 soldiers can move and operate a Gatling gun effectively. We can have them in position within 12 hours of deployment order. Dr. Chun reviewed the strategic placement maps they had developed. We're planning to position them at choke points where alien ground forces are likely to advance. Urban areas with clear fields of fire, elevated positions with good sight lines, defensive positions that appear to be armed with conventional weapons. The plan was taking shape, but everyone understood the risks. They were betting everything on the idea that advanced alien technology would be vulnerable to weapons that had been obsolete for over a century. It was either brilliant or completely insane. Doctor, General Patterson said quietly, what if this doesn't work? What if their armor is too advanced, their tactics too sophisticated? Dr. Chen looked at the restored Gatling gun, its brass fittings gleaming in the workshop lights. Then, at least we'll have surprised them, General. Sometimes in warfare, surprise is the most valuable weapon you can have. As the 48-hour deadline approached, similar preparations were being made worldwide. In every major city, hidden among conventional defenses, teams of soldiers were learning to operate weapons their great-grandfathers would have recognized. The aliens expected modern warfare, but they were about to experience something much older and perhaps much more deadly. The mechanical rhythm of restoration work continued through the night, each sound bringing humanity one step closer to a confrontation that would determine the fate of their world. Above them, the alien fleet waited patiently, confident in their technological superiority and completely unaware that they were about to face the fury of human history itself. The first alien dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing with the friction of atmospheric entry. Commander Zethkar watched from his flagship as his ground forces prepared to demonstrate the futility of human resistance. He had positioned his fleet to observe the coming battle, confident that it would serve as an educational experience for both the humans and any other species monitoring the invasion. First wave deploying now, sir, reported Lieutenant Vexana. 12 assault craft carrying full complements of shock troopers. They're targeting the human defensive positions outside New York City. Zethkar leaned back in his command chair, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans had indeed mobilized their military forces, just as predicted. Satellite imagery showed defensive positions, armored vehicles, and what appeared to be standard human infantry formations. Everything was proceeding according to expectations. What resistance are they offering? He asked. Conventional projectile weapons, sir. Some explosive devices. Nothing our armor can't handle easily. On the ground, Master Sergeant Rodriguez crouched behind a concrete barrier in Central Park, his hand steady on the crank of the restored Gatling gun. Around him, his team waited in tense silence as the alien dropships grew larger in the sky. The weapon was positioned to overlook the main approach route that intelligence predicted the aliens would use. Remember, he whispered to his crew, wait for my signal. Let them get close enough for maximum effect. The alien dropships touched down in a coordinated formation about a mile away. Ramps lowered with mechanical precision, and the Dominion shock troopers began their advance. They moved in perfect formation, their power armor gleaming silver in the morning sunlight. Each soldier stood nearly 8 feet tall, protected by energy shields and armed with plasma rifles that could cut through tank armor. Dr. Sarah Chun watched the advance through high-powered binoculars from a concealed observation post. "They're confident," she reported over the radio. "Moving in standard formation, no apparent concern about heavy resistance." General Patterson's voice crackled through the communication system. "All units, maintain positions. Wait for the signal." The alien shock troopers advanced steadily across the open ground, their formation designed to overwhelm human defensive positions quickly. They had faced similar resistance on dozens of worlds, and their tactics were refined through centuries of conquest. Energy shields deflected incoming fire, while their plasma weapons systematically destroyed human defensive positions. "Human resistance is minimal," reported the alien field commander to his orbiting superiors. "Conventional weapons are proving ineffective against our armor." Advancing to final positions. But as the aliens approached the concealed Gatling gun positions, something unexpected happened. Master Sergeant Rodriguez gave his signal, and the distinctive sound of mechanical cranking began to echo across the battlefield. The first burst of fire caught the aliens completely off guard. The Gatling gun's rotating barrels began their deadly rhythm, sending a stream of specially designed penetrator rounds into the advancing formation. The mechanical precision was unlike anything the aliens had encountered before. "Contact!" Rodriguez shouted over the sound of sustained fire. Targets engaged. The specialized ammunition, designed with modern metallurgy but fired through century-old mechanical systems, began to find gaps in the alien energy shields. The shields were designed to deflect directed energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles, but the sustained mechanical fire created a different type of impact pattern. Commander Zethkar straightened in his chair as casualty reports began reaching his flagship. "What's happening down there?" "Sir, we're taking unexpected casualties. The humans appear to be using some kind of rapid-fire projectile weapon. Our shields are experiencing difficulty adapting to the sustained mechanical fire." The Gatling gun's effectiveness came from its unique characteristics. Unlike modern weapons that fired single, high-velocity rounds, the mechanical system produced a steady stream of projectiles that overwhelmed defensive systems designed for different types of attacks. The energy shields couldn't adapt fast enough to the constantly changing impact points. "Impossible," Zethkar muttered. "What kind of weapon are they using?" On the ground, the alien shock troopers found themselves facing something their training hadn't prepared them for. The relentless mechanical fire was cutting through their formations like nothing they had experienced. The sound itself was disorienting, a rhythmic mechanical thunder that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Fall back and regroup," ordered the alien field commander, but the Gatling gun positions had been strategically placed to cover all retreat routes. As the aliens tried to withdraw, they found themselves caught in crossfire from multiple mechanical weapons. Dr. Chin watched in amazement as the century-old weapons proved devastatingly effective against advanced alien technology. "The psychological impact is incredible," she reported. "They're not used to sustain mechanical fire. Their formations are breaking down." The aliens' advanced targeting systems, designed to track and counter sophisticated guided weapons, couldn't effectively respond to the simple mechanical operation of the Gatling guns. There were no electronic signatures to jam, no guidance systems to disrupt, just pure mechanical engineering delivering devastating firepower. Master Sergeant Rodriguez maintained steady rhythm on his weapon's crank, watching as alien soldiers fell under the sustained fire. "Ammunition count. Still good, Sergeant. These old guns just keep firing." Around the world, similar scenes were playing out as human forces revealed their hidden weapon. In London, restored Maxim guns were cutting down alien assault troops in the streets around Parliament. In Tokyo, Civil War-era artillery pieces were firing explosive shells into alien formations that had expected to face guided missiles. Commander Zethkar's confidence was rapidly eroding as reports flooded in from battlefields across the planet. "How are primitive weapons causing such damage to our advanced forces?" "Sir, The humans appear to be using mechanical weapons that our countermeasures weren't designed to handle. The sustained fire is overwhelming our defensive systems. The tactical officer pulled up battlefield analysis. The weapons operate purely through mechanical action. No electronics, no guidance systems, no heat signatures that our jammers can target. They're essentially invisible to our counter-warfare systems. Zethkar stared at the display in disbelief. Centuries of technological advancement, weapons that could level cities, armor that could deflect energy beams, and they were being defeated by hand-crank machines that belonged in a museum. Deploy the heavy assault units, he ordered. Increase firepower and overwhelm their positions. But as heavier alien forces moved into position, they discovered another aspect of the Gatling gun's effectiveness. The weapons could be rapidly repositioned, operated by small crews, and deployed from unexpected locations. Human forces were using mobility and surprise to maximum advantage. "Sir, the humans are moving their positions faster than we can target them," reported the tactical officer. "The weapons are much more portable than our intelligence suggested." Dr. Chin coordinated the mobile defense from her command post. Unit 7, relocate to position Delta. Unit 3, provide covering fire for Unit 7's movement. The Gatling guns were being moved like mobile artillery, setting up, delivering devastating fire, then relocating before alien forces could respond effectively. It was guerrilla warfare using weapons from humanity's past, and it was working beyond anyone's wildest expectations. The tide of battle began to turn as alien casualties mounted. The shock troops who had expected easy victory found themselves pinned down by relentless mechanical fire. Their advanced technology, designed to counter sophisticated threats, was useless against weapons that operated on simple mechanical principles. "This is impossible," Zethkar shouted at his command staff. "How are we losing to primitive projectile weapons?" Lieutenant Vexana reviewed the tactical data with growing concern. "Sir, the mechanical nature of their weapons makes them extremely difficult to counter. Our energy shields are designed for directed energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles, not sustained mechanical fire." As the battle continued, word spread throughout the galactic community that the mighty Dominion Empire was being held off by an apparently primitive species using obsolete weapons. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical casualties. Commander Zethkar faced a choice no Dominion commander had ever confronted: retreat from a primitive world or risk total defeat by weapons that belonged in a historical archive. The ancient human weapons had shattered not just his troops, but the Empire's reputation for invincibility. The mechanical rhythm of the Gatling guns continued across Earth's battlefields, a sound that would echo through galactic history as the moment when humanity proved that sometimes the oldest weapons are the most effective against the newest threats.